So here's the third one. This is probably the one of the more complex for me to understand here. This well, let me go to the original email I sent you here. We jumped from the closings to the destruction of bondholder capital in favor of the UAW. Let's talk about the union itself. Why, is Obama putting the union first? Obviously, paying off campaign promises is one thing, but this reminds me of, I see the union as like a version of a legalized mafia. And with them being put first, so they only lose 13 cents on the dollar, the union pension holders, it looks like what is like a mafia bust out, as depicted on like the show The Sopranos, where if you become indebted to a mafia guy, and you have a business, and they know that, they bust the business out by forcing you to make get as much inventory on credit as possible, and then they just flat steal the inventory and sell it on a black market, and then bankrupt you and take everything for what you're worth. Now that doesn't appear to be what the immediate goal is, but effectively that's, I think, a step in that bust out direction, which is it seems like the Obama administration has this idea that really the company exists to guarantee people a job or a huge pension, and that's the first priority, not to make cars. And if they screw up making cars, well, they just bust it out, hand out the proceeds to the union people, and let them die an agonizing death, and then move on to the next industry. Am I being too cynical again?
No, I'm afraid you've got it pretty close to right. Campaign contribution payoff, I would express that a little differently. I would say that the relationship between big labor and the Democratic Party is an ongoing support system, and so really big labor owns the Democratic Party, or at least some segment of it, and the Democratic Party will serve big labor. I mean, that's the way it goes, and most Democrats are in favor of that. They're in favor of big labor, and so that's what the party will do. And so, of course, when they get to a situation like Chrysler, where you have got all these economic opposing interests, they're going to favor the labor unions.
Yeah, and I just can't quite see if they're really trying to preserve the industry and nationalize it, or are they just going to let it, if a couple of weeks ago or 4 weeks ago or something, they were saying bankruptcy is not an option for Chrysler or GM, and now it appears they're both going into bankruptcy. They've changed their tune.
Well, that's right, and I was reading about the Chrysler bailout in '79, and it appears that was that was presented as a method of avoiding bankruptcy for Chrysler, but in reality, when you look behind the scenes, what was going on, it was kind of a pseudo-bankruptcy anyway. A lot of the bankruptcy processes actually went on behind the scenes, but with government interference into the process. So Chrysler really did go bankrupt in '79, and a lot of their creditors were stiffed. But just like in 2009, they were not stiffed in the proper order.
Mm-hmm.
And so, for example, a particular struck me in '79 was that their suppliers were stiffed. That they didn't have to pay off. They ran up credit in the supplier area, and then they simply reneged on paying the suppliers. So, and that was something that the government supported. There was a lot of things going on there that weren't publicly known. All the public was told was that the government had saved Chrysler from going bankrupt, and now we have this wonderful company that's now viable again because of the wise government action. When in actuality, if they'd just gone bankrupt and come out of bankruptcy, it would have been a lot cleaner process.
Yeah, well, apparently...
But I think probably, what's happening now is pretty similar. But it's really just too early to tell. We're going to have to let this unfold and see what happens.
Yeah, it's, well, I guess we've had airlines go bankrupt and survive and then resurface and become solvent again, and it's possible that they can be rescued and put back on somewhat of a footing. But
well, there's two kinds of bankruptcy, and one was where the company emerges, and one's Chapter 11, one's Chapter 7, and I don't remember which is which. But anyway, the bankruptcy where they emerge is one version, but the other one is where there's assets are just all divvied up and sold off, and that could easily be what would happen without government interference in this case. But in that case, what would happen then would be other companies like Toyota and Honda, etc., would be buying up Chrysler, Ford, GM, not Ford, but Chrysler and GM assets, and streamlining the processes and using what they could, what they needed. So it wouldn't be a loss to the economy in that sense.
I see. It seems like it's going kind of on both paths right now, but we don't know which, will be the ultimate. I guess you kind of answered. I was going to ask you to make a clairvoyant prediction of where we're going, but you've already said it's pretty hard to see.
I think we're gonna. I think that I'd like to do that. Yes.
Okay.
Where we're going is into fascism now. We're going to have a national automobile policy, just like we have an energy policy. We're going to have an automobile policy, or call it a transportation policy. And the government bureaucrats now are going to start making corporate decisions with automobile companies, because for heaven's sakes, Joey, you certainly realize that these government employees in these bureaus wouldn't make the same mistakes that the corporate leaders of these